Welcome to the Standard Age podcast, conversations exploring the lives of entrepreneurs and those instrumental in growing companies. This podcast serves as a communal supplement to Standard H, my automotive-inspired line of apparel and accessories. Though popular among car and watch collectors, the elevated range of basics made in Los Angeles are certainly fit for many other discerning individuals. I invite you to visit standard-h.com to explore the latest releases, while the Substack exists for further deep dives behind the brand. Thank you so much for listening and for your support. Now let's get to the show. Rich Fordon and I first connected at either Ombus 2025 at Walt Grace Vintage for the Menta Watches event, or perhaps it was at Rolly Fest last fall. Regardless, we had some great conversation only to then see one another inside the orbit of Watches and Wonders back in April. His appointment at Alangan Sona happened to be immediately before mine, so we decided to join forces to create one large, 2-time slot size appointments to maximize our time there. We went on to have lunch together where we were joined by none other than another previous Hodinkee employee, John Buse, so needless to say, we had some quality time at the venue together. Rich has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to watches, and I was delighted to learn he would be interested in coming on to this show. Plus, I knew nothing about his foray into watches or what he loves most. That's all here, so I hope you enjoyed, along with a small surprise by way of his time spent playing baseball. Please join me in welcoming Rich. I'm your host, Wesley Smith, and you're listening to the Standard Age Podcast. How you been?
Good. It's been a busy couple of weeks, but good.
Yeah.
How about you?
Really good. It's hard to believe it's been, 6 weeks since Geneva, I guess?
I know. It's been
Isn't that
sort of
insane?
a sprint run since.
Yeah. Yeah. Which honestly, gosh, we have a lot to talk about, obviously, but I want to start with this jacket. Where did you get it?
Oh, this is actually new. New to me. It's vintage Ralph.
Oh, sick. Is
Yeah,
this
it's
an
like
eBay find?
80s. It is an eBay find. I'm addicted to eBay.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, so tell me about your eBay searches. Like, what's the search history? Is it all apparel or is it watches and apparel? I'd imagine. But
It's watches, apparel, objects a little bit, like old Cartier stuff, like silver objects I was doing for a little while, but that market is kind of it's not as slow as it used to be. You used to be able to find some really cool stuff on eBay, but now everyone's catching on. But I think my eBay addiction is best summed up in, like, I don't know if you know, but I know how many save searches you're allowed on eBay, which is 100. So now when I save a search, I have to get rid of something, and it's a process to then decide what's going to go. What searches do I not care about anymore if I want to add a new one?
I never gave this an ounce of thought as to like sort of tabulate, if you will, the number of things I'm interested in buying in the future. And I guess
Yeah.
that's effectively what we're discussing. So, how many things am I interested in now?
Well, yeah, it's like different eras too of collecting or buying old things. I don't really know necessarily if all 100 of my saved searches are like things that I collect. It's just I was on eBay one time and I found interesting things under the search, so let me save it. And
Yeah,
it could be anything from, like, Movado, like Movado with the filter of mechanical movement has
yeah,
been a save search for me for 10 years at least. And that's never going anywhere. But, Levi's 504 USA 38, which is my waist size, and I'm letting people know that, I guess.
well, you're also not short, so you're
Yeah.
yeah, it's proportional.
And also, you have to remember that vintage Levi's shrink. So really, I'm searching for 38s, looking for somewhere between 35, 34, 36.
Right. Yeah, let the people know you're fit.
But all that to say, you can, like, you can stumble upon that denim search once and
Yeah.
then be like, maybe that fit's not for me. I'm gonna get rid of it when you have
Mm,
something that you want to add. At least this is for me. I'm speaking in third person, but this is, like, I think, a personal struggle.
yeah. So the 504, unlike the 501, is that wider leg opening or narrower?
I think it's more relaxed. It is more
It's
relaxed.
more relaxed. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not a vintage denim guy. I just like I don't know what it is. I'm also not your height. So I feel like
Right.
it's harder to wear sometimes looser clothing because it makes me look fatter than I am as opposed to more
Mm.
stylish.
Yeah, typically looser fitting clothing on me fits kind of normal because I am tall and
That's
larger.
fair. Yeah.
So to get something that's not like snug, I
Yeah.
go for a relaxed fit.
90% of what Jacob Elordi wears, I can't swing that because he's 6'4" and I'm
Yeah.
not.
That's a different thing. The relaxed fit kind of hangs off of Jacob Elordi's frame in a way that maybe I don't have, but
Yeah, yeah. The
we're still looking
Bottega
in the
or the Issey
same.
Miyake is just like not working on my body.
Right, right, right.
Um,
Which is
anyway,
good for your pocketbook, really. I mean, at the end
100%.
of the day, it's a luxury that that stuff doesn't work on you because
Okay,
you'd be screwed otherwise.
yeah, totally. Couldn't agree more. And I'll take some solace in that. What is
Exactly.
okay, so with this vintage jacket, right? Are you looking for just the shoulders to fit and then you go and nip and tuck it at your tailor, or is it like you already know that that stuff off the rack is just gold for you?
I know that this tag of Ralph,
Yeah.
which points to, I believe, like mid to late 80s, generally fits me well
Okay.
in this tag size. But then you always have to wonder if like somebody tailored it or something.
Oh,
But
sure.
I just take that chance. And I'm always asking for measurements and I have like the ballpark in my head of what measurements are going to work. But
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. Like I make sure the shoulders fit. I like the fabric and the style, and then sleeves can always be shortened. I typically don't like to extend sleeves because then you get that crease. But
Right,
um,
right.
honestly, I'm lucky. I have a unique like I'm a tough fit with today's blocks. It seems,
Okay.
but if I go to vintage, stuff fits me off the rack a little
Interesting.
better.
Cool. I mean, that's
Yeah.
bittersweet, I guess. That's pain in the ass for today, but like, it's great.
Yeah, I don't really get to shop much. Like my
Mm,
retail experiences are a little bit minimal because I don't really like the process of going in and being like, oh, all this stuff kind of sits on me bad.
yeah,
You know?
it's not great for the ego, I guess. What is I've actually had some discussions with Mark Kozlerich, which obviously he is a sizable gentleman, and
Yeah.
I've offered to him. I was like, "Look, man, if you see anything you like from Standard H, I'll just make it. Just give me your measurements and I'll make it for you." Like, namely with the jackets, because that's easier to
Right.
manipulate than t-shirts, actually, ironically. Um,
Right.
And I think that has to do more or less with volume. So I will offer you the same. Like if you ever see something, we could probably get you squared away. We'll get you sorted.
Particularly, I mean, like I'm talking about a struggle that's particular with tailoring. With
Okay,
casual wear, I'm pretty much
off the
in
rack.
between large XL. I can make it work and it
Yep.
fits well. But yeah, tailoring, I'm also extremely picky.
Yeah. Well, if
I
you
think
if you
it's
have
just like,
measurements at the ready, then yeah, you've got a discerning eye.
yeah, I think it's just always been that way. It's probably why I'm in watches. I am
Yeah.
picky about details.
Yeah. So this jacket's polo, I take it.
Yes, polo.
Okay, cool. Actually, I don't even remember what year Purple Label started. It had to be in like the late 90s, early 2000s, I guess.
I think it was early 2000s. It's really that like purple label to me is Ralph's like Manhattan apartment chrome black
Yeah.
look, whereas polo is sort of the all American man
Yeah.
style. But yeah, I think that was more like a 2000s thing.
So I was like in the late aughts, early teens. He had a black label as well. And like I loved that line. And that was
Yeah.
very much like black chrome like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think of Purple Label also being like 1937 Bugatti. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like
Yeah. It's
everything
that
is
car.
cashmere,
Yeah.
like but anyway, yeah, it's kind of interesting. Where do you shop typically? I guess Ralph, like where's your tie from, for example? Because it's a pretty classic style tie you have on.
The tie I got from Drake's, but I believe that it's made, I'm going to butcher the name, but it's that small Naples tie maker,
Oh God, I don't
Marineglia. Yeah, I don't have the name. We actually, not we anymore, but there was a story in the recent Hodinkee magazine about that tie maker, and then I was just in Drake's and I saw that they were white labeling, so I grabbed one. It's
Oh,
very
that's cool.
nice. I think that they do fabrics really well. This
Yeah.
is a unique tie for me in that it has like a lining in it, which I'm sort of getting used to.
Oh, interesting.
Because I typically go for like a really light, unlined tie.
Yeah, I have a few Drake's ties, but they're more, I guess I've like the gabardine stuff or like the
Yeah,
knit. Um, is this a four in hand knot? I know we're like really talking details here, but like I live
yeah,
in
it's a
San
four in
Diego. I
hand.
don't get to wear a tie often.
Oh, it's a four in hand. I was actually thinking particularly about ties when I was getting dressed this morning, knowing that I was going to be speaking to you. In that, I really like the fact that I now have a job where it's okay to wear a jacket and a tie because I
Yeah,
really feel good in a jacket and a tie,
I
and I
miss
like
it.
going to work every day with it.
Same.
But I don't like the raised eyebrows. If
Right.
you're in a scenario where it's not necessarily in the spectrum of what people are wearing, if it's in the spectrum of what people are wearing and I'm towards the top of it, I'm fine because
Yeah.
I like to look like this. But if I'm above the spectrum, then I can feel it, you know?
Right. Yeah, yeah, no, I totally understand what you're saying. And there's nothing more frustrating than going out to dinner here in Southern California because
Mm,
people can sometimes be eating a $300 dinner in flip-flops. And I know for some people that's like an aspiration. But for
yeah,
me, I don't want to see your toes eating steak. Like I just don't. And so for me, like I, previously a manager for Gucci, I used to dress like you every day. And
yeah,
like I had like runway suits and like just sick stuff. Now, which now none of which fit me because I'm now 12 years older and my body's changed.
yeah,
It's weird how 35 and borderline 47 are different, but it's one of those things where like I genuinely love feeling dressed up.
yeah,
And honestly, it's respectful to whoever's hosting you as well. Like you want to present nicely for them or like pay respects to the restaurant or, whatever. I don't know. I just like
yeah,
feeling nice because when you dress well, you typically behave better as well.
yeah. I
As
think it's
boarding
similar,
school
like,
might add.
it's similar to what I'm describing at a workplace is
Mm,
that typically, and it's not always tied to price point, like you're saying.
yep.
Sometimes you go into a restaurant and I'm dressed from work,
Hmm.
and it's that feeling of I'm a little overdressed, and people, maybe the people who are working the restaurant don't see people with a tie on very often, so
Right.
they're acting a little strange, or just like the raised eyebrow. But I love going to the places where it's like, okay, you know, this is a place where you can wear a tie and they treat you normally, and maybe they give you a little bit more respect because you're giving them a little bit more
Yeah.
respect. And I like that. And again, it's not always tied to price point. It can be anywhere from like JG Mellon on the Upper East Side.
Yep.
You go in there and have a $13 cheeseburger. It might be more like 17 now, but um, you can wear a tie in there. It's like kind of a
Yeah.
preppy, old school New York place, and you can have a burger and wear a tie and not feel out of place. It's nice.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons I love New York City is that there's fewer eyebrow raises, quite frankly,
Mhm.
across the board. Even though anything goes more or less, like walking around the streets, you're still not going to get side-eyed about it. Whereas like here, if I were to dress like that going to dinner, I would absolutely get like the furrowed brow with like the who do you think you are and or where are you going like
Yeah.
who and it's just like I just don't like that and again I can feel it you'd never hear it
Yes.
but you could feel it
Yeah.
um but
And
yeah
maybe
it's
nothing's actually happening. Nobody's raising their eyebrow, but it's like you do feel it.
yeah totally yeah no 100% and I just think especially here maybe across the board in the United States I don't know I just feel like the sense of occasion is somewhat lost right?
Mm,
Like, let's dress up and go out to eat, us two
mm.
couples. And like, let's like, this is a sense of occasion. Let's celebrate as opposed to like, oh God, I don't know. I just want to be in athleisure. And it's like, oh my God. But
Yeah. It feels like, um, it feels like what you just described is a thing that you shouldn't say, but I do agree with you. Like,
Right.
I agree that putting feelings like that onto other people is like, it's strange for me to, flesh that out and be like, I wish you were wearing something different,
Right, right,
because
right.
ultimately, I want everyone to just wear whatever the hell they want.
Oh yeah, I
I
would
feel
never
good in
say that.
this.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. But it is like, on the collective. I'm not thinking of anyone in particular, but the collective, I do have similar wishes that I wish we as a society
yes.
were doing this to a more frequent, occasion, whereas not only to the grill or to the polo bar, but you can carry
Right.
yourself in a similar way, really wherever you want to go to dinner.
Yeah.
It's up to you.
It
Um,
doesn't have
yeah,
to mean I'm wearing my nice jeans.
hmm exactly. But like, I live on the Upper East Side. I live on Madison Avenue. I was recently walking back from the park yesterday and walked by Viore, and like,
It's in my backyard. It
looking
started here.
looking in the windows of Viore kind of tells you where we're at. Where
Yeah.
it's like, there's people shopping in there, and those aren't clothes for working out. Those are clothes just for daily life now.
Hmm.
And athleisure is like an overplayed thing, especially for men. Um, I think the most extreme version of this is like the David Coggins. There's something about being uncomfortable that like means you're a man. So like, be comfortable being a little bit uncomfortable
Right.
because you look better. I don't think that that's necessarily the way I feel, but
No.
I do understand the sentiment of like, yeah, are loafers worse to walk in? If you're gonna walk 5 miles a day, yeah, probably. But like, I don't want to wear sneakers.
Right.
I'd
Yeah.
rather wear loafers.
I was wearing loafers the other day. I've a, I'm either in sneakers, loafers, or boots. Like I very rarely wear like an Oxford anymore, even though I own them,
Same. Yeah.
or like Bluchers or anything. But honestly, I'm either in, well, usually if I'm casual, it's an LHS from Alden. But if I'm dressing up, I've got some Cleverleys that I love. Um, and the LHS, honestly, is probably more comfortable. I say this to my wife than like my Vans Authentics for 5 miles,
Yeah. Yeah.
because the Vans are just flat inside and there's really not that much cushion to the sole and outsole. But like, I'd rather wear my LHS, like, frankly, because I'm
You
probably
do
wearing
have
a
to get
polo
to that
anyway,
point though. You
Yes,
do have
yes.
to, there's a little bit of struggle that I think most men know about,
Yeah.
and some men don't get past
It's
with
the
a loafer,
selvage
because
denim.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you and I obviously saw each other at Watches and Wonders. We had a great time. Thank you for letting me ride your coattails into Longa, and I was more than happy for you to ride mine on my appointment. We had back-to-back appointments for those listening, and we sort of just hijacked one another's appointment to make one big long appointment with Richard. And that was maybe my favorite part of Watches and Wonders is like that whole time spent and walking around and having Richard, kind of hold our hands and walk us through. And it was just so much fun. Um, but what were like the standout watches for you this year?
Yeah, I think I'm going to be very predictable and say, firstly, on the note that you were just on, is the 36 Saxonia annual calendar.
Amazing.
Um, it feels like a watch that, like, if I could have created some sort of longer in my head, it probably would have looked pretty similar to that.
Oh yeah.
Um, I've always liked the Saxonia annual calendar. There's a New York edition with a slate gray dial
Mm,
that I remember just like going to auctions during my Hodinky years and just feeling like
yeah.
there weren't enough bids coming in on this Saxonia annual calendar. And again, or not again, but that was 38.5, and it was a little large and flat for most people. So I understood like why the market wasn't necessarily there. But the new one seems to be like hitting that. I wouldn't say this the longest face. I wouldn't say it's a Richard or Tony DeHaas, but it's a 3940. It's like, it's in
Right.
that zone, and that's a perfect watch.
Totally. And whatever reason back in December, and I've kind of said this on other shows, I started thinking about perpetual calendars a lot. recently, and this is I feel like they're really hitting their stride right now in the collector community since, well, maybe since Watches and Wonders, maybe even as early as February. But I was not to say that I was ahead of the curve by any stretch because the 3940 has been around a long time. But like for whatever, I just was thinking about my collection at large, and I don't know if you think this way at all, but like either watches and or complications I've never owned before, perpetual calendar being one, or just holistically thinking about my journey and or the end point or what I could even deem necessary as an end point, if that's even applicable. Um, and I've just like I feel like I need to own a perpetual or an annual, either way. It'd be cool to own an annual from Patek as well, since they created it, right? Like, I mean,
Mhm.
I think that's like something cool. Um, but I'm thinking 3940, but they've gone to the moon. You know, I can't afford one now. The 5140 I've thought a lot about, but then it's like the text and the subdials seems a little jumbled and like again, we're going back to details, right? I mean, it has to be detail oriented. They're 36 millimeters, you know, or 37 or whatever. Um, so yeah, this is all to say like that annual calendar from Longa was definitely up there. Gray dial rose for me or pink gold. Yeah, it's just weird. Like, do you think about that at all? Oh, I've never owned that before, so I need to. But complication
Yeah,
wise, not necessarily like, well, even brand. I've never owned a Patek before, and I was like, I think I need to own one at some point. I just don't know which
yeah.
one, you know?
I think about that a lot as well. I think it's pretty natural. I, particularly the one that comes up for me is I don't own a GMT, which is like
Interesting.
you can get into a GMT for a price point that's very different than a perpetual calendar, which
Totally.
your struggle is probably a little bit more tied to price point. But
Yep.
there's really no reason for me why I don't have like a Longines GMT to fill that void. But I've come to realize that it's maybe just not something that fits my aesthetic for
Yep.
like day to day. I've never really been a fan of the 1675 GMT. It's like a little too much color for me.
I see.
Um, and when I was learning about vintage watches, I I was like lusting after certain things. I had this note on my phone where I like what I wanted from like year one of being interested in vintage watches, and a 1675 is on there. And I think after experiencing the amount of watches that I have, the fact that I've never been like, all right, this is the time, like in the next 3 months, I'm going to find one,
Yeah.
probably tells me that that's not a watch for me. And maybe the fact that I've never really pushed myself to own a GMT is that same thing. Maybe it's just not something I need. Honestly, when I travel, I do sort of like a budget GMT with like a Tudor Black Bay 58. You can like use the hour hand and the normal
Uh,
bezel to understand what time it is in another time zone. But I have like my phone set up with Geneva time right on the home screen.
oh,
It's not
really?
the functionality is not really something I'm like yearning for, but I do travel enough that I should have a GMT. It just for some reason never had it. So I guess to answer the question, it's like I do think about that a lot. I think about it with brands, particularly Movado is a brand I love. I've already mentioned them once before, vintage Movado in particular. And like in the moments where I've sold a vintage Movado and I no longer have one, then I will almost immediately go and buy one because I
Oh,
always
that's
feel like
funny.
there's a home in my watch box for a vintage Movado.
That's IWC for me.
Yeah.
That was like my first love. That's really interesting. What got you switched on to Movado?
Definitely early on in my collecting and being interested in vintage watches, Movado just felt like such a value because the aesthetic was very similar to Patek in the 50s and 60s.
Oh, interesting.
And you could really dig and score one on eBay that was like so much watch for the money. And
Yeah.
I loved that. Like I'm that guy. I'm unabashedly that guy.
Sick.
If a perfect thing comes up and it's in my budget and it's at a dealer who I think is typically like full retail priced,
Hmm.
I will buy it if it's what I want. But
Hmm.
typically, I'm a digger. I'm gonna
Yeah.
auction house in a foreign land guy. Um, and Movado is like kind of the perfect brand for that because honestly, of the moon or of the not the moon watch, I'm just blanking. The museum watch and the
Oh,
way that
sure.
that brand was directed through the 70s and 80s, it
Hmm.
became a different price point. It became a different brand entirely. So
Yeah.
then the connotations of your everyday person finding a vintage Movado in their drawer and posting on eBay was like, oh, this isn't an expensive thing because I know Movado now as this brand where you can pick up a watch for $300 to
Yeah.
maybe 1,000 at the high end. But Movado truly in the 50s and 60s was a value, it was always a value proposition to Patek, but it was in the same vein of aesthetics and quality, just
Yep.
in the same way that UG was a little bit lower in quality, but really nice.
Yep.
And if you didn't get a 1518, you would go for an Aero Compax or a
Right.
Tri Compax or something. And in the way that if you didn't go for a 565 at Tiffany, you would look at waterproof Calatravas from Movado,
Right.
which were made by the same case manufacturer with the same dial manufacturer and an in-house movement for Movado that wasn't necessarily like Patek level, but it was very nice.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, all that to say is that when Susie in Oklahoma finds a 50s Movado in her grandfather's stuff, she puts it on eBay and doesn't really understand that this is like a multiple $1,000 watch.
Yeah.
So that creates that digging. You can really find something that's undervalued.
Yeah, totally. I'm a big chronograph fan. And I think some of those that are like, dare I say, Tastitandi with Breguet numerals kind of vibe, the like twin register Movados are so beautiful. My buddy Raymond has one that's just like incredible. And I'm just like, what do these go for? And he's like, I think the last time I asked that question, like a year and a half ago, he was like 18 grand or something like that. And I was like, oh, smokes. Like yeah, that's not nothing. And
Yeah,
it's a Movado. So people are caught on, right? Like,
definitely. There's definitely like a hardcore Movado
yeah,
enthusiast
yeah, yeah.
group, and it's growing. Certainly, right now, I think the brand has had like a really big last 2 years in
Hmm.
particular in the vintage market. Um, but still, when you compare the prices to like the techs, they're also kind of growing at a similar rate. Like
Yeah,
it's
bargain
not
though. Yeah.
everything's getting more expensive.
Yep.
Vintage Patek is getting more expensive, and so is Movado. Um, Movado is certainly garnering more attention from collectors who are looking for that aesthetic, but it's a combination of Movado being a great watch and those being interesting, and also more of the market being priced out of things like 1463s.
Yeah. I have a quick question to switch back to Longa for 2 seconds. They're obviously, is it me or it seems like they're really having a moment right now? And your world auctions, like, was it Hong Kong's or something recently that had like a bunch of them?
Yeah.
Um, but, and I actually don't follow auction houses that closely just because I'm not buying watches. I should out of curiosity, but I don't know. I just get if I start following something too closely, it's usually because it's like I'm ready to pull the trigger. And so I'd rather just avoid the temptation of like getting myself in financial trouble.
Yeah.
So really it's just like being self-aware and having some restraint. But historically, meaning say the last 10 years, you buy a brand new Longa One, a lot of people would venture to say, it's probably worth your money to go pre-owned, right? Um,
Mhm.
I don't think it's any surprise and or secret that their retail prices have increased as well over, say, the last 5 years. I've seen some 1815 chronograph over the last 10 years virtually double in price. Um, are you seeing any raise in sort of the floor, I guess, of the pre-owned market alongside the ceiling of the MSRPs? Or are they still, is there still a separation or is it getting
Yeah,
closer?
I mean, slightly, slightly raising the floor on things like a Longa One or even like an 1815 time only,
Okay.
which happens with everything. I mean, Longa is certainly having a moment going back to the very beginning of your question. In
Yeah.
Hong Kong, It was April for us. April 24th, we sold a PLM, a Pour La Marie Tourbillon. This one was special. It had a white gold case, I believe, and a blue dial, which is the rarest of that first generation PLM.
Mm-hmm.
And that watch for a very long time was a 300 to 500 on the best day watch. The blue dials don't come up that often, but it was a surprise to us even when it sold for, I think it sold over a million or right under $1 million and became the most expensive longer wristwatch
Wow.
to ever sell. That is sort of like the red flag to more people are paying attention to this at the highest end. Generally, prices of complications are up with Lange in my
Mm-hmm.
world. And I think with that, dealers particularly start to push the floor on Lange ones. And it happens very slowly and it's ripple effect or trickle down, whatever you want to say, but it definitely happens.
Yeah.
There is a bit of a disconnect between like brand new Lange one. Like if you walk into the boutique and purchase a, let's say, yellow gold with a champagne dial Lange one, Lange has moved its MSRPs to a point where that watch isn't, you're not making money, you're not flipping that like a modern Rolex.
Right.
But it's less of a hit if you, for some reason, needed to sell it the next day.
Right. Sure. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Um, I guess we haven't even talked about this. You are currently at Sotheby's, um, which maybe we can talk more into, but I didn't realize someone in your shoes being at an auction house would even be attending Watches and Wonders. Like what sort of like the strategic approach to going to Watches and Wonders, or is it just to really keep your finger on the pulse type of thing?
It's definitely keep my finger on the pulse. The whole watch world is there,
Yeah,
including sort of the industry of media as well as the brands.
sure.
And not the whole watch world. Some brands don't participate.
Right.
But I joined Sotheby's in August of last year, coming from Hodinkee and the media world. I was on the commercial side of Hodinkee, and we can get into that a little bit, but then switched to the media side, and was able to build some relationships on the PR and media side of the watch world. And in coming to Sotheby's, I think the one thing that auction houses struggle with the most is how do they interact with the brands, with the modern brands? Because typically, modern brands don't want to seem like they're supporting auction houses to bump up their own prices on the secondary market to
Mm,
then sell more watches, I guess would be the logic of Joe Schmo looking at it from the outside. But what I've found so far in my time at Sotheby's is that it's very valuable to have good relationships with the brands as an auction house and as someone in my seat,
mm,
because when we get something truly special that is historically important, the brands are happy to interact with us on that thing
I see.
because they don't really need to worry about you're pumping up the market for this thing that is super historically important because the market is already high. It's already going to sell for a high price. So when we, for example, the biggest success with this was AP's gross piece from December, which
Okay.
is a double-sided pocket watch that is one of two ultra complications that they made during the heyday of ultra complications. I'm talking around the time that the Henry Graves super complication was made, this era of the tail end of pocket watches and particularly the Valley de Joux creating these unbelievable objects just because they could.
Hmm.
And the gross piece is one of two APs that fit that bill. We're going to be auctioning that off. It's already going to be a news item. It's already going to be an expensive watch. So why not reach out to AP and see if they want to tell their story about this watch and give us more information, and let's market it in the exact correct way if we have everything confirmed by the brand,
Right.
because it's not a 2-year-old Royal Oak where they have to worry about somebody saying, "Oh, you're pumping that market up so you can sell more Royal Oaks."
Right.
It's a historically important item that there's not 15 more of them that they'll sell new to customers because this one did $8 million, which it ended up doing.
Totally.
So the reason I'm at Watches and Wonders is to nurture those relationships with brands. So then when we get something truly historically important, we can approach them and do a project together.
That's great. Makes all the sense in the world. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. Um, I don't even know where to go. My brain's going everywhere because I know you have this auction coming up too. In like 2 weeks? Is it the 15th?
Yeah. June
Okay.
15th.
All right. So this will go live just before that. But I did notice I was on the website earlier and did see some modern pieces.
Yes.
Now some of these are in catalog, some of them aren't. Uh, Although I guess they actually aren't in catalog with respects to the Rolex, right? Because aren't all of these out of catalog now, I think, or at least in their current iteration or details?
I mean, definitely not a blanket yes to that
Right,
question.
sure, sure,
You know,
sure.
we
it's
do.
it's piece by piece, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, like Simone Brett's involved. There's some Pateks, but then there's like some really beautiful old vintage Cartier. Tell me about this auction. We'll take the conversation there quickly.
Yeah. I think to pivot off of what you were describing about what is in our auctions,
Yeah.
typically, obviously, auction houses sell expensive watches. But the best watches for auction either have exceptional condition, exceptional rarity, exceptional story, or a combination of the three.
Hmm.
Exceptional rarity can be a spectrum from a Simone Brett that is still in production and is impossible to get. So that's
Yeah.
exceptionally rare. To, on the
Piece
other end of the
unique. Yeah.
spectrum, piece unique AP pocket watch from the 30s. So when we do sell modern things,
Hmm.
it is typically in that bucket of exceptional rarity. The exception of which is probably modern Rolex,
Yeah.
because there's always a market for modern Rolex. It typically is just a good thing to have in an auction, lively bidding, etc.
Sure.
But to a different extent, it does fit that exceptional rarity because that's a watch that most people don't have access to retail. And I'll just throw my hands up and say that is not the fault of Sotheby's or auction houses. It is just I guess, yeah, just a fact of life at this point.
That's great.
But in this auction, we have, I think what Sotheby's does really well is that exceptional story bit.
Hmm.
So we can get into individual pieces, but the top lot is, the Steve McQueen worn Hoyer Monaco from the set of Le Mans. That is the perfect example of exceptional story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and that's among a group of many that we have, including Steve McQueen's personal Submariner, which that market, particularly vintage Rolex, is not, front page news these days. But if that watch were to come to auction 10 years ago, I'd be talking to the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and all this. Like, that is a watch. The 5512 is a watch that's very linked to Steve McQueen. He
Yeah.
wore it as his personal watch. It's really the king of cool's like watch. Whereas the
Totally.
Monaco he wore in the movie, and it's become a thing because of that.
Yeah.
Steve McQueen personally picked the 5512 Submariner, and this is one of the examples that he owned.
What is the 5510 that I'm seeing here? What's the story on this one? Do you know?
Luckily, I do know.
The big crown. Yeah.
Yeah, so that 5510 Big Crown is one of three 5510s that was found from a family in Australia. It's got a really cool story behind it. This fits into the bucket of exceptional condition, first and foremost. The watch
Yeah.
is nearly new old stock. Definitely the case shows all of its original geometry and it's super sharp. The
Yeah.
dial, in particular, with these big crowns, it's very difficult to find glossy gilt dials that still maintain that gloss and
Yeah.
that deep black, staring into a black hole
Especially
feel
without
to the,
cracks, you know?
definitely.
You
So
know?
not even any crazing to the very top of the gilt surface.
Yeah.
Um, But the exceptional story part of this watch is that, so the story goes, a grandfather told his grandchildren, three boys, that one day I will give you a watch. And many years go by, and grandfather never really followed through on his promise to give the boys a watch. But during COVID, those three grandchildren were looking through the farmhouse of their grandfather. He had since passed, but looking through his things and stumble across three new old stock 5510 Submariners, one of which took aging in a different way and the dial was crazed a little bit.
Okay.
The other two were absolutely perfect. And this is one of the other two. So this is one of the two that were truly found new old stock. He never gave them to the grandchildren. It appears that he never wore any of them. They weren't for him. They were probably, he bought them at some point to give to the sons and never, for some reason, gifted them. But
Wow.
I guess it's our luck because they came to market in this truly a state of preservation.
All three?
So two are in that truly new old stock, and all three were sold privately when they were initially found.
I
And
see.
now this is coming back to market. First time that either or any of the three have come to auction market, but this is a story and a group of three watches that in the vintage world, vintage Rolex world particularly, the
Yeah.
story is known and these three watches are known. The really cool thing is that the 5510 was only made for about 1 year in 1958. And the two new old stock examples of the three were consecutive serial numbers.
Oh, that's sick. Wow.
Yeah. So they're really brother and sister watches.
Where, and these were all bought in Australia, you're saying?
They were all found in Australia.
Okay.
The grandfather had actually moved from a different part of the world to Australia. So where they were sold, we don't know outside of the fact that they weren't sold in the US because they don't have import marks on the movements.
Sure.
And there's no papers found with these watches, just
Right.
three Submariner heads, not even bracelets. So the bracelet has been added. It's period correct. It's the right bracelet that would have come on the watch.
Yeah,
But
the rivet. Yeah.
these three watches were found without bracelets.
That's crazy. Well, the McQueen Monaco, was this a watch he only wore on set, or did he wear this after recording or filming rather?
Yeah, so the story with the McQueen Monacos from Le Mans is very long, and I think
Okay.
we would need 2 hours to tell it in full.
Sure.
And that doesn't mean that it's like shady or anything. It's just
No.
the story of watches coming onto set and how Hoyer was involved requires a lot of storytelling to say
Sure.
that Don Nunley, who's the property master of Le Mans, gave Steve the option of what watch do you want to wear for this film. He eventually picks the Monaco, and then Don Nunley goes through a process with Jack Hoyer to bring Monacos to set to have extras for the filming, which is a normal thing. So
Yeah.
ultimately, we believe now that there were 9 blue dial Monacos on set. How much he wore each of those 9 is sort of the question. And
Okay.
every time one comes up, the seller is trying to make some sort of connection to this is the watch on Steve McQueen's wrist in this scene, right? Like that's what you
Oh
want.
gosh.
The lucky thing for us is that this watch comes with direct provenance from Steve McQueen and the movie. It was taken from set by Don Nunley, the property master. And he kept this watch all the way until 2007 or 2008 when he sold it to our consignor.
Got it.
When he sold the watch, you can see the bruises and the scratches on this watch in particular. And he kept this watch for so long because when he sold the watch, he wrote a letter to our consignor saying, "This is the most worn watch from the set. Steve
Interesting.
McQueen wore this watch the most during filming," is essentially what the letter says. And it does tell the whole story of really the watches on set. This letter does. But the key point is that you can see the use in this watch. You can see the original strap with one lug or one strap hole sort of really stretched out.
Yeah.
And this letter in tandem with that state of preservation and all these scratches sort of lead us to believe that this is the definitive watch that he wore during the movie.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, it's
I'm
a I I've seen other Monaco's from the set of Le Mans and nothing against those watches, but holding this watch, you can really feel the use and
yeah,
like this was an item that genuinely feels like it was beat around in the inside of a Porsche 917,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
And it doesn't feel like faked, and I know my feelings don't really count in the whole provenance discussion, but
yeah,
it's about as good as you can get.
yeah. Now these were plexi, right? These were not sapphire cased. So like all these
No, not yet.
scratches are just on the surface of the crystal, so to speak. Um, yeah, it
Yeah, and a
looks
lot
like it
of
was probably banging around inside of a car.
yeah, and you get sort of in these old plastic crystals as they deteriorate over the years. You get like crazing that's actually inside of the plastic material. And this has that sort of concentrated around the middle, which is what you want to see from an original crystal.
Yeah. Only because I've never seen one before. One of my favorite lots of this upcoming auction is the 1904 S, the $20 double eagle coin. That
It's
is
really,
just
really cool.
so cool.
That one in
Um,
particular is historically important, and the details of which are fully laid out, obviously, in the catalog. But
uh,
it's one of two coin watches by Patek Philippe made in the 1920s, which is the first two that they made.
mhm,
Later, specifically in the 50s and 60s and 70s, they would go on to make hundreds of coin watches. But
right.
these two early examples are the first instance of Patek taking two coins, cutting one in half, essentially, and then hollowing out the other one to fit the movement in. And creating a coin watch. This was made for Henry Graves Jr., one of the most important Patek collectors, if not the most important Patek collectors, who was also a coin collector. So we don't know. You know, I wish I had a letter from Henry Graves saying, "Hey, Patek Philippe, can you make a watch inside of a coin?"
Yeah,
Because I also like coins and I
right.
like Patek Philippe. I don't have that, but there is evidence that points towards, "Hey, I'm a coin guy. I'm one of your best clients. Could you do something here?" And then this being one of the first two they ever made, and who knows when he might have asked. If he asked, who knows?
Dude, the
It's
dial is so beautiful. Like I like the hallmarks and like the like at six or excuse yeah, three, six, and nine, instead of just like a rectangle, there's like a diamond as like the indice, if you will. I love
mhm.
a train track, just full stop, like on most watches. I love it. I mean, Breguet numerals printed, like the blue hand, like it's just so cool. And I'm not much of a blue hand guy, but this stark contrast with these like gold, everything else being gold, is just, it's so beautiful. And it looks minty on the inside. Obviously, the exterior of the coin is, I mean, it's old, right? Like, so it's going to be aged, but wow, what a thing. Like, it's just
Yeah,
incredible.
the
Um,
condition and the originality is really, really great.
yeah.
And that's this. It's another provenance story because in
Hmm.
the same way that the Monaco was McQueen to Don Nunley to our current consigner.
Yeah.
This watch was Henry Graves to his grandson, Pete Fullerton Jr., who was also a Patek collector in a different generation.
Yep.
And it did not leave the family until 2012, this
Wow.
watch.
Wow.
So you had two of the best and most respectful Patek collectors owning this thing
Hmm.
for almost 100 years,
Yeah.
which means that there was never any worry about a, a watchmaker who shouldn't have been in there opening it because it would have only been Patek Philippe, you know?
Right. Right. It's like stewardship, like
Yes.
it's incredible. All right. So you went to Northwestern. It seemed like you were on a bit of a finance path, let's say. So how did you even get into watches? Because obviously you leave sort of the finance world for none other than Hodinkee, as Tony likes to call the mothership. Um, what what is what was that bridge? Like, how did that even happen?
Yeah, so I went to Northwestern and I studied economics as a liberal arts school. That was the most like financy degree that I could have left the school with.
Sure.
And I did go into finance initially. Just I think I was just thinking about this actually the other day,
Oh, really?
and speaking with a friend about why I went into finance out of school. And
Hmm.
maybe it's not giving myself enough credit, but I was extremely focused on athletics pretty much all the way throughout university.
What did you
And
do? What was like your discipline?
I was a baseball player, and
Oh,
yeah, so I
same.
was a left-handed pitcher on the Northwestern team, and then in high school I played hockey very competitively, and I loved sports growing up, and I really directed a lot of my attention there. And honestly, I pushed myself in school so that I could play sports and at a high level. The discipline really translated. It didn't have much to do with me like thinking about what my career would be like one day and how if I study really, really hard, I can be X.
Right.
It was more just I'm a person of pride, so I like am studying hard, but my real focus and my mental space was going towards athletics. And then I think I realized probably like early in my senior year that college baseball would be the end of the road for my athletic career. And where do I go now? And finance was the easiest off ramp. So this is a longer answer to your question, but I was always interested in watches. And as I left school and went into the finance world, I didn't really have like that investment banking 100-hour work weeks. I had like a very normal finance job. I was
Oh,
working
wow.
9 to 5. And I remember like 2 months in being like, coming from this world of rigid time of I was either studying for school at Northwestern or I was training or I was playing in a
Practice. Yeah.
game.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I would get home at 5 o'clock and be like, what do people do with all these other hours? Because I'm young and the day still feels really long to me.
Right.
Um, and that's when I got into watches more seriously. I was began writing about watches. You mentioned Tony earlier. We were both in Chicago at this time. He had just recently started the now extinct Rescapement,
Yep.
and I started writing some articles for him, particularly about vintage watches. I started being a little bit more serious about my buying on eBay and then selling a bit. So I was trading watches off the side of my desk, and then it got to this point with my job in finance and then what I was doing in my other hours with watches that I was enjoying far more my other hours spent on watches.
Yeah.
And I had moved to New York with my finance job right around COVID because everyone was working from home. And I had members of my team at the Royal Bank of Canada, is where I was working. I had members of my team that were in New York, so it made sense. But ultimately, I moved to New York because there was more watch stuff going on here than in Chicago.
Oh, that's funny.
And I had ulterior motives, but I had a reason to move with my finance job.
Yeah.
So I was here for 4 months maybe and had known people at Hodinkee like Ben and
Hmm.
Russell Kelly at the time, who's
Oh,
now at
sure.
Material Good.
Yep.
And they offered me a job, and I kind of had this moment of if I don't leave finance now and do this watch thing full time, I don't really think I'll make the jump at a later stage in the
Right.
finance career.
Yeah. You'll get too comfortable.
I was probably like 6 months from that next promotion, and maybe the salaries don't line up anymore, and I never make the jump. So
Right.
I made the jump and I took the little bit of a hit, moving into a passion area, and my salary went down a little bit, but I was still early enough in my career that it
You
didn't
didn't
really matter
feel
all
it.
that
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't have responsibilities. I didn't have much to, yeah, much of like a baseline that I needed. I could just follow this passion for watches and got to Hodinkee, and I was initially doing vintage, like commercially, the vintage watch drops every Wednesday. I was merchandising and sort of buying for that, and then really worked my way through many jobs on the commercial side of Hodinkee. I ended up spending 5 years there. But I remember having this moment of one, if I don't move now, I probably won't ever move. And then two is that I think that I'm a smart, motivated guy. And I think if I apply myself to something I actually care about, that'll probably get me a little further
Yeah.
in my career. Um, and I think that that's playing out. I mean, check back in 10 years, I think, but
Yeah.
I just didn't have the passion for finance. And I don't know how many people do. It's just kind of a job. And I'm probably more of a person who lives to work than works to live.
Yeah.
And I made that jump and it was the right move.
I have so many lawyers on this show. They would all echo that sentiment, I think. Um, what was your best pitch? What was the hardest to hit?
I had many iterations of myself as a pitcher throughout college, but I had a really good slider towards the end.
Nice.
So did a little bit of closing. I did a little bit of like eighth inning bullpen stuff early
Yeah.
in my career. I was a starter, and yeah, I think it was probably slider. Had a decent fastball with good movement, but
Nice.
um,
Two
I
seam,
was
four
a
seam.
two seam for the most part.
Yeah.
If I needed the extra 3 miles an hour, I could switch, but um, I had a lot of sink and cut. Yeah,
Where's your release point? Is it higher or more outside?
it was not true three quarters and not true over the top. It was sort of
Right.
in the middle, and then
Okay.
it could drop down a little bit to get a little more run. And yeah, it's a bit of an art.
Yeah. I pitched for a few years. I don't have your height, as we've already noted, but you know, travel team baseball, stuff like that. And then because I didn't hit my growth spurt, I was actually I played with Josh Hamilton actually,
Oh wow,
and
kind of looked like Josh Hamilton.
that's really funny. I wish I had his size, but yeah, he was a beast even as a little leaguer. But only left-handed shortstop I've ever played with, frankly. Um,
That had to have been just a purely best player on the team play
that's
shortstop.
exactly. And then he
Yeah,
started pitching a little bit because he threw so hard. But I remember he was like a size 15 shoe our freshman year in high school.
I
And
believe it. I mean, he
at
was
it,
like a freak of nature
they
at
would call
baseball.
him like the next Mickey Mantle. Like it was crazy. And then I left and went away to school my last 2 years of high school, and then we lost touch and stuff like that. But yeah, it was the passion. It's one of the things I miss most about my childhood is playing baseball and even just
Mm.
throwing the baseball. Like I just really, really miss it. It like borderline makes me emotional. Like I love that era of my life so much. Um,
Well, at some point, you'll get to the stage where you're playing catch in the yard with a little one, I assume.
I hope so. She's showing really, really good hand-eye coordination, actually. Like, just full stop. Like, she's really great. Like, even just like feeding herself, like she just got it super quick. So she actually doesn't make that much of a mess of her face usually. But yeah, we'll see if that translates to ball. I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
we'll have to take in a Yankee game or something when I'm back in the
Yeah,
city,
I honestly, I don't get
or a
to
Mets game.
either
I don't know.
ballpark enough.
Yeah. I've never actually
I'm a
been
White
to
Sox fan,
Mets.
so
Are you? I went and saw them
yeah,
last year, for the
I'm
first time.
sorry.
Yeah, well, it was the worst team in baseball history, so I saw some record-breaking stuff.
Yeah, yeah, you could always you can always write that down and remember it.
Yeah, and but yeah, I'll be in Chicago in August. I don't know what your flexibility is on travel, but I have every intention to go in to see the Cubs play the Yankees that weekend. So,
Oh, very cool.
yeah,
Have you
it'll be
been to
cool.
Wrigley before?
This will be my third time. Yeah,
Okay. See,
yeah,
even as a diehard Sox fan, and I mean, I was growing up in probably a heyday of White Sox baseball
sure.
because I was young when they won in
Frank Thomas.
'05.
Okay.
I'm a Mark Burley man,
Okay. Yeah,
as you
sure.
can tell from the left-handed pitcher in college. But yeah, I even as a diehard White Sox fan can admit that going to a game at Wrigley is quite the
It's
experience.
yeah, yeah. I thought you were going to say painful, but yeah, maybe it's
No,
both.
no.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. So I grew up a Wade Boggs fan because I started playing at third. I was like the only 5-year-old who could get it across the diamond, so they put me there. And
Humble
so,
brag.
well, yeah, well, as a 5-year-old, yeah, 5-year-old bragging me. But yeah, it was a Wade Boggs thing, and then he got traded to the Yankees from the Sox. So I'm one of the rare occasions where and my dad is from like New York, Connecticut, so he was a Yankee fan. So I just stuck a Yankee fan since I was like a
Gotcha.
kid.
Yeah, I don't know if I have like much of an allegiance to either team here in New York.
Mm, makes
I
sense.
haven't I think I haven't been like super into baseball because of how bad the White Sox have been to then pick a team pretty much the entire time I've been here. And this
Right.
is like, I think year 6 of living in New York.
Yeah.
But I think if I had a lean, it would be Mets,
Yeah.
but that probably just feels natural because the White Sox are in the AL,
Yeah.
and
Oh, okay. Okay. So you don't want to, yeah, you don't. All right. I see. I was thinking
yeah,
maybe you just love an underdog.
well, maybe that too. Yeah, the secondary team in a big city. That's
Uh,
me.
yeah. Well, I mean, I grew up in Raleigh, so we didn't have professional baseball. And so it was either the Braves or, well, as far as like proximity goes, it was Braves or Orioles. And
Yeah.
because I was sort of affiliated with the American League, we'd often go to Orioles games so that I could watch Wade Boggs play
Mm.
when he was on the Sox and then subsequently the Yankees. Got to see Mattingly play. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of good stuff back then, but we did have the Durham Bulls. So, you
That's what I'm
know,
gonna say. No major league teams, but many minor league teams in that
yeah,
area.
yeah, yeah, totally. Actually, yes, a lot. Mostly went to Durham Bulls games. I think my autograph from Steve Avery was actually when he was on the Durham Bulls. So, I mean, it's going way back there. Um,
Yeah.
Dude, I've been on this rabbit hole though of Greg Maddox interviews. Have you seen these interviews?
No, I mean he's a
Dude, I gotta
legend, and
send
he
these to you.
was.
It like the stories that people tell about him that like clearly as us as fans like never knew was going on. I had no idea he called his own pitches. I had no
Mhm.
idea that like the way he would catch the ball would insinuate the next pitch he was going to throw the catcher, which is like just so cool. And
Yeah.
then like jamming Jeff Bagwell or like allowing him to hit like go yard in this game because 3 months from now we're gonna see these guys in the playoffs and I'm gonna fool him with this pitch. Like, dude was playing chess. Everybody else is playing checkers. It was crazy.
Yeah, I mean Greg Maddux, in studying baseball and like trying to become a better pitcher, he's like one of the guys you go to because his mental game was way better than anyone else's, especially of the time. Like now, it's really
Stats.
normal for
Yeah.
pitchers to focus on sequencing and tunneling, which
Hmm.
is you're wanting your slider and your fastball to come through the same slot. So halfway to the plate, they look the exact same and they're
Right.
not off plane from each other. And sequencing being like, yeah, if I throw you two fastballs inside and you move back an inch, then I'm dotting the outside corner,
Right.
like,
Right. You can't reach
and
it.
Maddox was doing that
Yeah.
just like naturally almost, but he was just above and beyond everyone else at that time. So he was calling his own games because the catchers who are like, you know, they're the most, they're doing the most thinking pitch to pitch,
Hmm.
but they weren't even on his level yet. Now all the catchers are thinking about things like sequencing and tunneling,
Yeah.
but Maddox had to do it himself almost because the catchers weren't at that level yet.
Yeah. You kind of wonder if he created that for like as an industry, so to speak. Like,
I mean, when I was trying to be a better pitcher, I was looking at Maddox.
Hmm.
So I'm sure at some level it comes from that as a source.
Yeah. Um, just kind of wrapping things up. What are some of the brands? I mean, you've mentioned Movado, obviously, but like, are
Mhm.
there any other brands that you kind of consider to be your favorite, or maybe even just on your hit list lately?
Yeah, I mean, the watch I didn't get to sneak into my answer earlier from Watches and
Okay,
Wonders, certainly the Chopard 1860.
the blue.
And in general, Chopard is a brand that like I'm really interested in, but
Yeah.
from like a more modern perspective, obviously their watchmaking for me sort of starts with the LUC collection in 96 and then
Hmm.
goes from there. So it's honestly, I was describing this in the Chopard booth to the brand. It's a very unique experience for me because I'm particularly interested in watches that are decades older than their production sits in.
Yep.
And I was describing this even because I own an 1860 from like 2002. So it's a vintage Chopard, I guess, in that way, neo
Hmm.
vintage, if you want to call it that. But it's that original generation 1860. And what I really appreciate about Chopard is the way that they're still making watches to like a very, very high level and respecting this 90s era in a really nice way. And I like
Right.
the people at Chopard. So for the first time in my like enthusiast career, I am more interested in what a brand is doing today than what they were doing at what I can consider their heyday, which for Chopard, as a vintage guy, I thought the heyday was the 90s, but I actually think that they're making a better watch today.
Oh,
And
that's really cool.
yeah, I was describing this in the booth, and then where that has gotten my brain to is like, I really want that Blue Dial
Yeah.
1860,
Do you?
because
How do you
that
feel about the date?
the date, I'm not like a picky date window guy. For as
Okay.
much as I'm picky, I'll never own a watch with a 4:30 date window
Oh,
kind of
sure, sure.
person,
That does
you
drive me
know?
crazy, but I have owned them, and that's how I know it drives me crazy.
Yeah. I have, I think I haven't owned, I think I've owned a El Primero at some point, but
Sure.
I don't know. It's not the detail that like I can't get over.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So honestly, having the date, not having the date, yeah, I don't really care all that much.
Well,
um,
I'll be honest. I mean, with the show part specifically, like, and you were wearing, I guess, your 2002 when we were hanging out, is the
yeah,
black dial with, let's just call it bedazzled. It's kind
no,
of
it's
blingy.
I think it's a 17/1860, which is the 1860 with guilloche dial. It's white dial with a diamond bezel and white gold.
Yeah, it's sick. It's so beautiful. And is it still like what is it, 36.5 millimeters? So they're still doing.
36.5 is the traditional sizing, but the diamond bezel is actually a little larger.
Oh, that
So
makes
it's like
sense
37.
to
I'm
set
just
the
being
diamonds.
semantic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean that yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, with this blue one and even the current iterations with the 6 o'clock date window, it's still like tonal. It honestly, there's with the blue, I even forgot it was there until I looked twice. And I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
it does have the date. I tell you
Yeah.
what, when I was before I bought my Longa one, because I bought mine in Paris, I think on the corner there is Chopard, or on the next block over rather, on the corner. And I went in there and I was just like, "Hey, do you have any 1860s?" And this is 2 years ago, by the way. So unfortunately, they didn't have like the salmon dial in there, um, but they had a black platinum case, black dial, diamond indices, and it was
Wow.
unreal.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was like 60 grand.
Yeah.
Like for that watch with that, that micro rotor, that watchmaking, that finishing, platinum, diamonds, I feel like 60 was like a reasonable price if I could be
Mhm.
insane for a minute.
I mean, the steel blue dial is 29, so it's not
So
crazy.
yeah, I mean, it's like you look at a Patek and you might be double that, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, and I think as much as so many brands want to say they make a watch to the level of Patek, I do think that Chopard does. And they actually won't say it as much as other brands might, that
right.
they're on that level. They sort of just make the best watch that they could possibly make,
Hmm.
every detail wise, from melting and it's not melting is not the right word, but making their own gold
Yeah.
and even steel alloys, to then making their own cases and owning the dial manufacturer Metalum, which is one of the best dial manufacturers in Switzerland, to then having the caliber 96 1.96,
Yeah.
which is just, it's on that level. And like they might shy away from saying it, but I think it's very fair to say.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Is there a dream watch in the Rich Fordon catalog or Grail,
There are
if you will?
definitely dream watches. I am like so the question was just posed to me, and I'm extending, I think, as you were trying to wrap it up, but the question was just posed to me in like a
All
group
good.
chat of, would you sell all the watches you currently have for your Grail watch? And so many of the answers that came in on that group chat before I could digest the question were, absolutely not. I bought this watch for my son's graduation. I bought this watch for this reason. And I couldn't really detach myself from these milestone, or I love the variety. For me, I would sell everything tomorrow if I could get one of my Grail watches, because my Grail watches are like steal 1518
Oh, sure.
or like things that are insane, you
But
know?
then would
So
you
I
be
think,
concerned about wearing it then? I mean, those are the heaviest of the heavy, in 1815.
yeah, I don't really get that precious about, I mean, maybe I would if it was $18 million on my wrist. Who knows? But I think I do a good job of understanding that, particularly with vintage watches, and I tell this to friends and I tell this to clients all the time. Most likely, the watch has been put through way worse than you will ever
That's
put
right.
it through because
Mhm.
you are a person that respects this thing probably more than the original owner.
Hmm.
Maybe not, but
Yeah.
if somebody bought a 1518 for $1,000 in 1950, that's a lot of money,
Hmm.
but it's not millions. So
Right.
and it was just a watch. Like at some point, these things were just a watch to someone,
Yep.
and they treated it like that, most likely. So
Yeah.
if you want to treat it as just a very nice watch that you care a lot about, you're probably not going to put it through more than it's already been put through.
I couldn't agree more. Um, some of my grails, not that you ask, but they're more approachable than that, is what I'm saying. Is that like I
Yeah,
probably could sell all of mine and actually get like a 3970 or a
right.
5970. I'd probably,
I think
but
people maybe just don't set a grail like I do. Like a grail for me is a platinum 2499, of which there's one,
oh,
or I think maybe
yeah,
two or three.
yeah, 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 yeah. Right.
But that's just me. That grail watches to me, and maybe it's because I've seen a lot of watches. I've seen a lot more watches than most people
Yeah,
have. So,
that's fair.
and also, has the Holy Grail been found?
Yeah,
No.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. I
like,
mean, that's a
I
solid point.
theoretically, your Holy Grail should be a fake watch that you just come up with in your head. That is the combination of all the things that you want that was never made,
Y-
or maybe it was made, and we can still find it.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's the way I look at like a lot of things with just like, man, if I could take this from that and this from that, I think about that way like in cars or, all that kind of stuff. Which, by the way,
Yeah.
what was your first car?
My first car was a 1998 Audi A4.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, it
That's
was a nice
great.
little car. It drove like a go-kart. It was a
Yeah.
fun car.
Was it manual?
No,
Okay,
sadly
okay.
not.
No, but I know
Yeah,
that body style. Those were like I sold Audis and Porsches in 2004, and so that body style was the previous iteration of the
right.
ones that were then.
The
Um,
B5. It's like before the real bubbly A4.
right. That's so
Yeah,
cool, man.
this is a
That's
great
great.
car.
Yeah. Are you still an Audi guy? Like you probably don't have a car now, right? Being in the city.
I don't have a car.
Right.
I loved that Audi. I sold it. I sold it to fund a project car at the time during college, which was a 71 International Scout.
Sick.
Yeah, I I like cars and I like working on cars. I don't do it in New York City because it's
Right.
almost impossible. But I just drove it, like, I'm from Chicago and was going to Northwestern, so as far as I had to drive was like 45 minutes through the heart of Chicago.
The
So
Scout.
I didn't need a car
Amazing.
that was a highway cruiser. So I had this old early SUV to just tool around campus and drive home for Thanksgiving if I needed to.
What color was it?
It was black. It was originally like a very metallic light blue,
Okay.
and it had
Oh,
been
interesting.
repainted hunter green at some point, and
Of
then
course.
somebody painted it black with, I kid you not, a paintbrush, but it had like a cool look to it. Like it
It was
had
it was
brush
like it
strokes.
was the matte wrap before the matte wrap. Um,
Exactly.
that's crazy. Wow. Man, you've got me on this LUC kick now. I'm like just I keep thinking about these LUCs. I've also been hunting a black dial dress watch. I'm sure somebody's listening to this and rolling their eyes because I've been talking about this for years. What is what's your recommendation for a black dial dress watch that's like not $100,000
Mm,
and call it 35 to 38 millimeter?
yeah, I think that's a very good question, actually. Um,
Because a lot of people would also say, well, Wesley, a dress watch isn't black, it's always white. But I to to hell with that. You know,
Yeah.
I have a Cartier
Believe me,
Tank Louis that I wear as like my white dial dress watch. So
yeah.
this is why I'm like, and it lives on a brown strap, and like have put a black strap on it to go black tie, and that's fine.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, and ideally time only. Like I don't need a date, right? Like
Yeah.
to keep it on the same plane as being a dress watch.
One of the directions my head went was like that neo vintage Blancpain era.
Mm,
I can't per se like a Villaret. I don't remember quite how many black dials they made, but I think it's under your sizing. It might be like 33, 34, but it's a
okay.
really like elegant case shape, and it's that Biver era of
Right.
Blancpain
Right.
that I think is still a really good value. Like they sort of got popular 3, 4 years ago, and then have now cooled off a bit more. And modern, I don't know who does a better black dial dress watch than Longa. I don't think anyone does.
Well, the problem with the Longa situation currently is that the only black dials I've been able to see are 40 millimeters.
Mm,
And so
too
they came
big.
out with the 1815 that actually I can't stop thinking about the blue dial, pink gold, 34 millimeter.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful and like incredibly wearable, clearly.
Hmm.
Goes under any cuff. Not that again in San Diego I'm wearing a lot of long sleeves, but it's one of those things where I can't stop thinking about that watch as just like a daily wear because I wear a lot of
Hmm.
blue, I wear a lot of white, you know, it's very applicable. But they did do that 36 millimeter 1815 white gold black dial, and that was 36 millimeters, as I just said. Several years ago. I can't remember what it was, 2012, 2013-ish, but they
Yeah,
don't come up
that's
for
like
sale
two
very often.
generations ago.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
they're just not out there readily. But they do
right.
come up, and so that is one sort of on my hit list. And
No, I think you like properly stumped me with a very general question,
well,
which
this
I'm
is why I've
now,
stumped myself, and this is why I've been talking
yeah,
about it for years. I
yeah.
can't find it. Like the perfect one, I mean. Like there's always I'm not a Dauphine hands guy, although the
Mhm.
LUC has Dauphine hands and it gets a pass. I think like a 3448 gets a pass. There's just like a few Dauphine hands that I'll like let slide, but
Yeah, we have a great 34. I'm going to be auction house guy. We have a 3448 in our sale. It's the third 3448 ever
I saw
made,
it. I saw it.
and it does not have Dauphine hands, which is my excuse to have brought this up.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
It's
I'm actually looking at it right now. It's got stick hands,
I
right? Or baton hands or
yes,
whatever.
and some of the so the early 3448s were very like experimental and like finding what the look of this watch was going to be, and you can see that in this
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah.
And I'm like not a 3448 guy,
But
and
this one,
experiencing this watch made me realize it's because of the Delphine hands that I don't love it,
yeah.
and now I love this one because it
Yeah,
doesn't have them.
yeah, this one's it's perfect. And Tiffany dial, which like I couldn't care less, but it's nice to have, I guess, for an investment
That
standpoint.
is that is the most lukewarm and negative thing I've ever heard someone say about a Tiffany signature on a
I
vintage
just
Patek.
it's because it's like people don't want them unless they have it. And it's like it's still a
Mm.
really good watch if it doesn't have it. Like calm down. And that's
Okay,
sort of
that's
my
fair.
take, you know, is
That's
that
fair.
like can we just like not assume the Tiffany supersedes the fact that it's a Patek? Like can we just
Yeah.
like go ahead and call it what it is?
This is a similar feeling to when somebody contacts me and say they want a birth year Rolex,
Yeah,
you know,
amen.
which is like, what about
Yes.
just a nice vintage Rolex from the era that you're looking for and not be focused on something that does not matter at all?
If it's within a year or two, trust me, you're A, not going to notice the difference aesthetically, and B, this watch will never have been born on your birthday. So,
Right.
and that's another topic that's come up time and again on this show is that batch manufacturing kind of precludes it
Exactly.
from being that. So, just study a little bit more and stop
And my
caring so
thing
much.
is, if you need to be at a barbecue in Westchester and tell someone that was made in your birth year, just go ahead and do that. I don't care.
They're not going to know the difference, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
or care for that matter. My wife sure wouldn't.
The reaction is just still going to be cool. Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Cool.
Glad you like
Yeah.
your watch.
Uh huh. Uh-huh.
Rich, this was fun, man. And honestly, you're just one of those people that I just don't get enough time with, man. So I appreciate you taking the time.
I agree. You should move to New York City.
I have every desire in the world to be bi-coastal. You have no idea. If you can find me a shoebox apartment in the West Village, or I'll take the East Village. It's fine. I'm actually long. I'll cut this short, but the guy Raymond I was referring to earlier about the Movado. Do you
Mhm.
know Raymond Molnarek? He used to be at Analog.
I
Okay,
do know Raymond, yes.
so Raymond and I are close, and
Hmm.
we've kicked around the idea of sharing an apartment in New York now that he's in LA.
Wouldn't be a bad idea. He does seem like a cleanly fellow as do you, so
Yeah,
no
well, yeah.
issues there.
Well, the idea was to get, 3, 4 guys to split the rent, and then
Hmm.
all of us would be transient anyway, and we'd hardly ever be there at the same time. So it's like if you can get the rent payment monthly low enough, if I go to New York 3 times a year and get a hotel room, it'd probably be cheaper to have an apartment.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother thing. The
Yeah.
hotels here are
Yeah.
somewhat prohibitive at some level.
Yeah. I mean, if you're paying $400 or $500 a night, I mean, and you stay 3 nights, that's a season's worth of, like divided by
This is a
four.
similar logic I've been talking myself into getting a car in New York City because renting cars to get up to the Hudson Valley or something when I want to get out of the city
Right.
is starting to become like, all right, if I need a car for 2 days, it's going to be $600. Like,
Yep.
so maybe we can stack those 600s and be okay having a car.
Yeah. Well, that's one of two things. Maybe hit up Ben, say, can I borrow one of your 6 cars? No, just kidding.
I
Or
wish.
or you could do uh maybe get your auction house Sotheby's to have like an auction sponsored by Cadillac. Cadillac seems to be advertising a ton lately. Maybe you could just
Mm.
borrow like some version of a Escalade for the weekend. That's a great car to go
Well,
north with.
hey, if you have a listener who's somewhat connected to a dealership in my area, I'm welcoming to any loaners that
Well,
you may have.
Enery used to work for Cadillac. You should just hit him up. He's probably got some sort of lead on a
I borrowed a
rental.
car from Henry one time, and then he has many cars, and I was just going to the Hudson Valley for a weekend trip,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden it turned into, oh, actually, the morning of I was going to go pick up the car, the only car I have is my '63 Maserati 3500 GT.
I've been
So
in
I
that
had that
car.
for the weekend,
Yeah.
and I've never. I think my butt cheeks were quite sore after that weekend.
Did you come back smelling like fuel as well?
Well, that I'm fine with. I mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
love
I
that
actually prefer that.
smell.
Yeah. I need that
Yeah.
cologne, actually. Yeah.
But driving a car that is that nice and that original that's not yours is like
That's nerve-wracking.
it's a bit. I didn't get used to it in 2 days. I'll say that much.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Beautiful
Yeah.
car though. Good
Oh, it
God.
was amazing.
Shout out
It was
Enery.
amazing. Yeah.
Cool, buddy. Thank you for your time.
Cool.
All
Thank
right.
you. Hope to see you soon.
Yep. This Standard H podcast has, of course, been brought to you by Standard H. Please rate and review this show as it helps others discover these episodes. For more information and feedback, visit standard-h.com or email info@standard-h.com. Thank you so much for your support.